My name is Maina wa Kinyatti, and I'm a Kenyan by birth. I'm a historian and a writer. There is something in me, and I always feel that I want to leave something, a contribution to this country. And the only way I can do it is actually to engage writing. And written words do not die. It remains, and is a contribution that the next generation will be able to read those books. We've been reading about, like Jomo Kenyatta is writing. We read about Dedan Kimathi in Nyandarua and his papers, which actually has written a lot of these things. Because there is something we want to know about ourselves. And the question comes, who are we as a nation? And the only subject which can identify us is actually history. History identifies us as a Kenyans. And people get proud to read our own history anywhere. You like to read about Kimathi, you like to read about other people who have written books, Kenyans. The other thing I felt that our own history has not been written. The only history written in this country is written by foreigners, and particularly the colonial, the colonists, the people who came here and conquered us, and of course take away almost everything we had, and then they write their own history. The history they have written on Kenya or about Kenya is not our history, it's their history, the way they look at us. And no foreigners can write our own history. The only people can write our history is us. And that the question, I've been feeling that I want to fill that gap. At least I can be able that I approach history from African point of view, and in particular the struggle, for the chapter about the struggle for independence. So, and I enjoy writing that. I enjoy history. Second thing, history is a culture of the people. It is history which keeps the culture of the people. It is history itself. Without history, the people, they are no people. And that's why, remember, when the Europeans came here, the first thing they destroyed actually is our history, isn't why they did it. And our culture isn't. And define us who we are and calling us all kind of names. Because they want to destroy us. People without history cannot fight for their independence. They cannot fight because they don't have anything to look back, that there are people who fought, who refused. We've been reading about Makitiriri. Why? Isn't history the record which has kept that Makitiriri fought and all that? We've been reading about Wayaki, Koiterero, and all of them. These are our forefathers. The people actually took arms to try to prevent the British to occupy our country. And it's a record which is kept, that it's kept by, not by mouth, but actually by the book, the records which have been written. That's what I write. And the second, I'm interested in writing, reading, especially writing and reading. But most of the time is actually the reading, when you write, when actually you take a book, you take a pen and a paper, write, those words, written words, do not die. It remains. We have written about British history, isn't it? About Shakespeare and the rest of them. Why they keep them? Because that's their culture, that's their history, and they are proud of it too. It's the same thing we would like to contribute, especially us who are educated, who has gone to school. And those in particular who can be able to write. Writing is not easy, it's very difficult. You have to have commitment to do that. And you have to spend time, looking for information, for research, all those. So it is not easy. But there are people who are committed to do that. You spend a lot of time in archives. Yeah, collecting the pieces. Why were we defeated by British when they came? Was something lacking in us? Was it weakness in terms of material that we couldn't prevent them actually to occupy our country? Those are the questions as you look around, you search and look at that. The second question is that, isn't a history which identifies us and of course unify us as Kenyans? Why we are known as a Kenyan and why not known as Tanzania and other people? What's the difference between us and Tanzania? History can be able to answer those questions. We are known for that we are the best when it comes to East Africa. We are the best when it comes to running sport and everything. We defeat them. And his history is us, and we are proud of that. So these are the things that we write about. You see, these two books. This is in English, and this is in Gikuyu. I wrote this book first, this one, in English. And then I took to give people in the village. I was so proud, having written a book, the first book. And most of the people I took this book to, this one, the English one, were actually the former member of the Mau Mau movement. So they asked us, why you write in English? Who is going to read? Why don't you write something in Kikuyu that all of us can be able to read? And that gave me a hit. So I decided to write a book, this book in Kikuyu. That's what I wrote. This book is actually almost the same as this one, in the same history of the struggle. And that's why I wrote those things. The other one, both of them, the theme almost the same, except the language. The second I've been trying to figure out, and it's get a lot of I'm sometimes confused because the book has to answer, who are we? Can English language do that? Can the English language identify us? And we've been going through, can we write in our own language? Since we are rich in languages, we have Swahili, well, Kikuyu and all those, can we be able to write those books in our own language and the people be able to write? Those are the questions. And writing in English is basically, it's very colonial. English language is to us, it's colonial language, isn't it? And we identify with it. And basically, so that's the question. So this is for this too. See this book. I wrote when I was in prison. It's called Mwakyuta Gehoreka. It was a daily record of what was happening to me and what happened around within the prison. I was in Kinyatti prison. So there was nothing else to do. And I decided probably the best thing I can do. I was jail for 6 years. So I decided probably I can do something when I'm in prison in all those years. So I decided to record the activities which were taking place in prisons. And the question was, how do I get papers to write? And how do I get a pen? Those things, a paper and a pen in Marufuku, in prison. Once you are caught, you are punished for that. So I decided probably the best way to do is actually, you take a nail, Somalia, you write on the wall special poems. Then you wait for somebody to bring you a paper or a notebook, a exercise book. Then you move from that. But even that was dangerous too, because the prison guards will come and check whether I've written anything on the wall. And then they come with a brush and water and try to remove all that out, those kind of things. But I managed to, actually secretly, I managed to get the writing papers and send out to my wife. And I wrote this book on that time, so I spent in prison. This one is called Mwakyuta Gehoreka. This is Dedan Kimathi Speaks. This one and this one, they're the same. The only thing, this one has been updated. In the case of the color has changed. The cover has changed, and you can see both of them. But this is the writing on Dedan Kimathi. So what happened here, as I wrote, I think I told you I'm very much interested in writing history of Mau Mau. I feel that's my contribution to the nation. And the history of Mau Mau has not been written. Even the people that are scholars, especially in Kenya, the academics, they haven't done serious research on Mau Mau. The people who have written these books, especially on Mau Mau, are not us. Actually, they are Europeans, especially Britain, British, and Americans. They have written a lot, but when it comes to our own universities, and you come to our own professors and others, when it comes to question of Mau Mau, most of them actually don't write about that. It's a question of whether the people feel that it's something to do with tribalism worked in this country to play a very important part. And some people deny that actually Mau Mau, especially scholars, Mau Mau was not a revolutionary struggle. It was not a struggle for independence. It was Kikuyu's struggle alone. They were fighting for land and all those things. So we differ with that. That Mauma is a chapter in Kenya history, cannot be abandoned or forgotten. It's very important. It's a contribution the Mauma readership actually made. And they die, they sacrifice, some were killed, but eventually they were able to push the British government to a position to accept that this is our country. And that's the position I take. And I thought probably for me I can be able to reject the other argument and write books on the Mauma movement. This is a book this is written in Japanese, this book here. It's actually translated from this book, Kenya Freedom Struggle. The title almost the same, is Kenya Struggle. And you can be able to see that there is a lot of interest in people want to read about the Mauma movement. So the Japanese has actually translated this book, and it is adapted, it is read in Japanese universities and all that. So that kind of thing. This one is a song, Mauma songs. The title is Thunder from the Mountain. And actually it's written in English. So most of our people cannot be able to write. But they have been thinking that eventually I'll be able to go back. I have the manuscript, Kikuyu manuscript, actually publish a Kikuyu version of the Mauma song. There are many of them. So this is one. Something I didn't say about this book. This one, let me just put how I got the material. This Kinyatti writing. You remember the British were able to capture a lot of Kinyatti's writing. They invaded, they went to Nyandarua, and they were able to actually collect all the writing of Dada Kinyatti. There were about 3 sacks, gunia tatu, zile tunafichwa zinawekwa. Was the record of what they were doing in Nyandarua, and it's the record of the struggle against the British occupiers. So they took it, and of course we are sure they burned all those captured writing of the Kinyatti. And it happened that they gave our archives some copies of Kinyatti's writing. But when our government took over, all Mauma writing and others were actually banned by our own government. And of course the British themselves too destroy what actually they captured, the book, the Kinyatti writing. So I got a chapter of Kinyatti writing. And this is one chapter, one book, because there are many. There are about three gonias of that, which actually was captured. So, and I was able to put it together. And this is how we are able to read about what actually the Mauma were thinking in Nyandarua and other places. This one, you can tell, I don't have to explain much on these things. Again, it's called Kenya, a Prison Notebook. This is this. This book is this one. Two of them. It's written in English. I did this. I wrote this book first. I record what was happening in English, all of that. Then I finished. I couldn't write anymore in English. So I sent this to my wife, because I smuggled them to my wife to keep. And it's the record of what was happening, the torture we experienced in prison, the hunger, and other things which actually was taking place in prison. It was a secret document. I couldn't write it just like that. And I managed to smuggle it outside. And my wife happened to keep all the writing I wrote when I was in prison. So this book, and this is in Kikuyu, and this in English. I wrote this book in prison too. It's actually the poem. The poetry I wrote when I was 6 years, a lot of years, isn't it, in prison? Yeah. You can graduate from university with a degree, isn't it, in 6 years? So I wrote that, and then I smuggled it. So the PP I wrote when I was in prison is this, and is this. There are 3 books I wrote when I was in prison. So my years in prison was not idle that I was hanging around. I was writing, I was reading, and I decided probably that it's a good record for the future generation to read, to see how the government, our own government, treated its own citizens. Okay, now this is the last one. It's called More Kenya, isn't it? The records, when we decided in 1974, a group of us that we are going to go underground and start underground movement. And the idea was actually to create an organization that can be able actually to overthrow the government of Kenya without was necessary, that it's a dictatorship. So the writing, the papers which are here written, they are not mine. They are actually the work of the organization I belonged, and that organization was called More Kenya. And if you read this book, it can be able to tell much of what we are doing. And again, I was able to hide this document before I was arrested. So when I came out of prison, so I started putting the papers together, at least in a book form, at least for the next generation to see that actually we fought back when actually there was dictatorship in this country. So this writing is actually, it tells about what happened in between 1974 and 1982. This one is again, the writing on here was written in prison. This is writing here. It's actually it's letters I smuggled out of the prison, and the poems and he called the pen and the gun. Therefore, I was able to actually write my 6 years in prison. I was able to write 4 books. And there is one, the other from the mountain, the pen and the gun, Kenya, a prison notebook, and the Kikuyu one, Mwaki Utagi Horeka, and the English one is, the poem is actually a season of blood. And those are the book. Those 4 books I wrote in 6 years I was in prison. We had to know our history. When we know our history, we can love our country. If you know the history of this country, and you can love the country because you know the history of that country. And the second thing is to be able, the history will give you an idea, or once you read it, you'll be able to identify with other Kenyans, that we are Kenyans, and the history attack tribalism. That if we know who we are as a nation, when the poison of tribalism cannot actually divide us, that has been dividing us. So for me, for the youth, actually, they had to read more, and particular history, to know who they are, and to know where is our country going and where we came from. And of course to know the people who has contributed a lot to make this Kenya, this our country, what it is. And the second, the most important, I think reading is very important. For me, I read a lot about our own country, and I love our country very much. You have to love if you are Kenyan, you have to love our country, and we have to love our people. And that's the message you can get. And it's the youth who say, you guys are the one going to fight this war, to fight tribalism, which actually is becoming a disease in this country, and to reject the culture of corruption, which actually is all over in the country. And we have seen how the wealth of the country be stolen by our own people. We have to reject that. We have to fight it back. And the second thing, actually, to demand, we have to have a democracy in this country. And we have to fight for it. It's not the older people are going to do that. It's actually the new generation. It's you guys who have to do this work. And you have to pick up where you have left. And you have the most important we have written a lot about our own country, about where is our country going, and where we came from. So this actually the message I can give to the youth.